when I said I'm gonna be 100% black, 100% Asian, that's when I got to the 100% human. Without that, I didn't actually feel like I was 100% human. As a creator, you have to find a model that's sustainable for you. I'm a real artist. I'm a real artist. Artists don't make content on social media. I'm so glad I don't think that way anymore.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Asian Hustle Network / Meta Prosper Creators Podcast. Today we're very excited to have Ryan Alexander Holmes as one of our special guests. Brian, welcome to the show.
What's good, man? It's a pleasure to be here.
It is. I'm really excited to go deep into this story that you have. All
Oh
right. So
yeah.
Ryan, kind of walk us through the beginning. I want to hear about everything.
Dude, oh God, where do I start? I mean, okay, well, I didn't start making content and start being the public figure on social media I am until 2020, like during the pandemic. Um, I'm an actor, so during that time there was no auditions, there was no creativity happening at all because everyone was scared they were gonna die, Brian. So no one really there was no auditions, there was no work to be had in the creative field, so I started making my own content. It's also like coincided with BLM and Stop Asian Hate. So both of my communities were sort of being attacked. It felt like so I felt like I wanted to speak about that, and so I did. And then when they started sort of feeling, I felt like they were beefing with each other, like both movements were sort of like at odds with each other. That's when I really was like, okay, I really need to make my voice heard, and I really need to talk about these issues specifically head on. And just the way that I operate is like, I don't take myself seriously. I took those issues seriously, but the way that I talked about them was from a universal human perspective that also incorporated humor and like wit and sincerity and authenticity because I am a part of both. I don't have the convenience of choosing a side. So that's the impetus of me making the content. And it actually helped my acting career. It opened up doors for me in the creative field that otherwise I don't think it would have taken me much longer. And I wouldn't have actually found the space that I'm in where I get to be myself and sort of find connections and find success that way. So
Yeah.
that's my
Well,
story in a nutshell, I think.
I like that. I mean, I feel like you're a person that carries himself in really high regard and very professional at all times in general.
Oh wow.
And
Thanks.
that's what I see in
I don't see
person,
myself that way.
right? That's what I see in person. That's why I see you at
Yeah.
all these different events. And to
Hmm.
find that you have a great sense of humor online, I love that. And I
Yeah.
know that identity is a huge part of your content, right? Growing up as a biracial individual, Chinese and African, growing up in a predominantly Asian area, 626.
Yeah. 66, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind
Um,
of curious. Like, I know that you grew up in LA, like post LA riots, and you're
mhm.
mostly like the only black kid amongst his peers. What was it like
Yeah.
growing up, and how did that affect the way you view yourself and your identity?
It was tough. Like a lot of identity crises have happened during my formative years. Yeah, I was the only one. The school district was sort of like split between Asian and white, and it was like 0% black except for me. And so I sort of had to figure out how to socially survive in that climate because a lot of my peers were telling me how to be black and telling me I wasn't acting black enough because I wasn't acting like the caricature or the stereotype that had been conditioned to think black was, right? And so I had to deal with that. And so I'd bring that home, and then I'd try to emulate like the black that I could find, which was like BET and hip hop culture, you know what I mean? And a lot of it was actually regressive. And so my dad started seeing that, and he was like, okay, well, I definitely need to tell him what black truly is. And so he started giving me parent homework
Yeah.
that was, about actual African American history, not what they teach us in school, which is like barely anything, but that's from like a white perspective, the dominant culture's perspective of black, which was like another iteration of what these kids, these peers that were around me that weren't black were telling me what black was. So my dad gave me an education very early on in what blackness was, taught me about the Black Panther Party, taught me about the Black Liberation Army, taught me about Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X and MLK, the real MLK, and Angela Davis. And I started reading Toni Morrison. And so I'm very happy that my dad gave me that base. And along with that base also came my mom, who you know, I grew up with my Asian side in LA. My black side lives in Jacksonville and we visit them often, but I grew up with my Asian side in LA. And so I spoke the language. I celebrated all the Asian holidays, red envelopes galore, and was very proud about that in my own household, right? But the second that I would step out, they like the world seemed to treat me like I wasn't Asian. So there's this weird dichotomy growing up where like I'm around all these Asians, I speak the language, I internally feel like I am one of them, but then the outside stimulus is like following me around in convenience stores and grocery stores and talking trash to my parents or to not my parents, but to my mom specifically and my grandma specifically when I go to like these stores, they talk trash about me to them thinking that they weren't my family, you know? So I dealt with that growing up. And it definitely made it hard for me to sort of see myself as Asian American for a long time until, until what I said earlier, BLM and Stop Asian Hate, where I just started making my voice heard and saying, as an Asian American, you know, as an Asian American, I feel this way because I am an Asian American. But up until that time, I was like, I can't say that. I don't look like an Asian American. No one thinks I'm an Asian American. And then I just like was like, why does that matter? I am an Asian American. So I'm just going to speak from my perspective. It's going to be different because I am African American as well. But like, there's so many different Asian Americans. It's the same thing as that. It's the same thing as being Filipino American or Chinese American or Japanese American. We're all different. I'm just different in a different way. So I'm going to speak as an Asian American. And I think that made the world of a difference in terms of like not just how I'm received, but how I see myself and then projecting that image out into the world of like an image of pride and joy instead of insecurity and non-belonging. Did I answer your question? I don't even remember
Yeah,
what the question
you
was.
did. You did. I was just asking
Okay.
a question about your identity. No, I
Okay.
think that's powerful. I think this is definitely a very unique podcast for us because we don't have
Yeah.
that many biracial people on the show,
Yeah.
and to hear about people's perspectives about having multiple cultures.
Hmm.
I mean, I talked to mixed race people in the past, right? And
Yeah.
a commonality always seems to be, what is my identity,
Yeah.
right? Like I feel like I'm a hybrid between two cultures, in which they are, right?
Yeah.
But they always tell me that they always feel like one culture is more dominant than the other,
Oh wow. Okay.
right?
I can understand what they mean by when they say that for sure.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
great hearing your perspective too, because I'm sure that there's listeners listening to this podcast who are mixed race that feel
Hmm.
the same way, right? I
Yeah.
have mixed friends that totally reject their Asian side,
Hmm.
right? I have mixed friends that totally embrace their Asian side, reject the other side. I liked
Yeah.
how you're able to blend both and be
Yeah.
and learn about both and speak up about both because you are both, right? That's who you are.
Yeah.
You're unique.
I think I still have empathy for any mixed person who uh, has any kind of conundrum with how they feel like they should belong or identify. Because I've been there, I know what that's like. I don't judge them, and whatever they choose is what they choose, and I support them in whatever decision they make because that's their life. I will say though, my perspective is, you know, because I think about this all the time. I'm like, I am not just my identity, I am my humanity. But in order for me to access my humanity, I had to get rid of all the fog and the insecurities and um, the almost like the also the self-victimization of thinking that like I don't belong in either or that I need to choose a side. And when I started being like, no, I'm going to be 100% black and 100% Chinese and 100% human, that's when I could get, when I said I'm gonna be 100% black, 100% Asian, that's when I got to the 100% human. Without that, I didn't actually feel like I was 100% human. Because now I feel like any space I go to, I know who I am. So I'm just going to be myself. I'm not going to be my identity, like my cultural identity. I'm just going to show up as Ryan Alexander Holmes, who's proud of who he is. And he happens to be black and Chinese, you know? But before that, I'd show up in spaces and I'd be like, am I black enough for this space? Am I Asian enough for this space? Am I mixed enough for this space? Always trying to find how I qualify on like a surface level basis. Now I'm like, let me just go into the space, be myself, know who I am, be proud of who I am. And if they show me love, great. If they don't, great. Like there's nothing that I could have done because all I did was be myself. And that's a different outlook and perspective on life
I
that
like that
I
a lot.
didn't always have. And I
Yeah.
think that it's not limited to mixed people. It's a a perspective that I think everyone could benefit from having because it's not contingent on anything outside of itself. It's contingent on how you feel personally about yourself, and then entering into spaces and projecting that outward.
I like that a lot. I like the 100% Asian, 100% Black. That's a great way
Yeah.
to look at that. You're not half of one community. You are in that community, right? And
Hey,
you are yourself.
yeah. Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that a lot.
Thanks,
That's
man.
awesome. Of course. I want to talk about your experience back in college, right?
Mm.
Going to UC Berkeley, being a part of Kappa Alpha Psi,
Hmm.
right? What was that like? Because I know that there's Hakeem Jeffries, there's former NFL Colin Kaepernick a part of this fraternity as well.
Yeah.
What does it mean being part of fraternity with so much activism and leadership?
Uh, well, first of all, like my family is Kappas. Like I come from my brother's a Kappa, my dad's a Kappa, my cousin is a Kappa, my godbrother's a Kappa. So like I didn't have a decision. I had to do it. But like, you know, it was, it's one of the greatest decisions of my life, you know. I still had to make that decision. And to be a part of an organization, a Black organization whose founding principle is achievement is an amazing thing for for an African American man to have. Because I forever have a network of extremely talented, smart, representations of what I believe is African American, not what society believes is African American, right? I think the world could benefit from more examples of, my fraternity brothers and my fraternity and what we've accomplished. We have Colin Kaepernick in our fraternity. That's already enough, But I'm very proud of my line there's six of us that crossed at the Gamma Alpha chapter at UC Berkeley. One was a former NFL player who's now a coach who just won the state champion in Nevada. Another one of my brothers worked at the White House as a Gates Millennium Scholar and has a PhD and a master's degree in law. The other one is a Hollywood writer. The other one started his own business. Like these are the Black men that are my best friends. And I wish that the world saw Black people that way because that's who we really are, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so to answer your question, yeah, it's like it was amazing to have that too while I was in college, to have that example and to look up towards something that I wanted to be and see Black men who are examples of that and be proud of it. It does something different. It does something to you to see yourself reflected in that way.
Yeah. That sounds a lot more constructive than my college fraternity. I feel like all we do is party.
Hey, no, we partied too, man. We partied too. We partied with the best of them too, man. It wasn't just all achievement,
I'm
you
like,
know.
man, who's the overachiever in my fraternity? I can't even think of one. No, I think that's a great experience, man. Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
having your dad, your brother, your cousin, your uncle all be a part of the same experience, it's a
Yeah,
huge,
yeah, yeah,
huge
yeah.
bonding experience as well. And I think you're being humble during this podcast, right? As you mentioned, everyone else is quote unquote successful. I think you're also successful in your own right, and you should be proud of that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna brag though. I'm Asian, man. We don't do that.
No, you just gotta brag in this podcast, dude. You
We
want to
don't
learn
brag,
more
we're
about
humble.
you. I know a huge component of your content is your family and your identity,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And we'd love to talk a little bit more about the dynamic you have with your mom, your grandma, especially your
yeah.
grandma, right? And your everyday thing. Like, how did you even
Yeah.
get her into like making content with you?
I don't even think she knows that. She knows that we're making content, but like, I don't know. Like, I don't make my content in a way that sort of is invasive. I never sort of like script anything. Everything is sort of just organic and in the moment. And so I'm really just catching me and my family just in the moments that we share together as a family. Like, I'm never, oh, you stand here, get that lighting right. I'm never like that. The
Mhm.
other day, my grandma and I were watching like a track meet on TV, and I just made some content out of that. But we do that, or watching a football game, or we're playing mahjong, or grandma's like cooking up the food that she makes, ginger crab, you know, and I just share that. And I share it with joy and pride and a little bit of humor, and it never feels like work. And think I think something about like social media is that you have to, as a creator, you have to find a model that's sustainable for you. And this is the most sustainable model for me. I'm not really a planner. I'm really not. I don't plan my content out. Don't really have a posting schedule, but I post every day most of the time. And it's because I just make content of things that I'm already doing, that I'm already passionate about, you know? It all comes from the heart. It all comes from like what I already would be doing if I wasn't making content. So to to what vibes exactly with that is just like who do I love the most in my life? My family. And
Absolutely.
I didn't really have to think of how I'm going to incorporate them. I'm just like, let me just catch these moments. Let me
Yeah.
catch the moments that make me laugh. Let me catch the moments that are funny to my family. Let me show my family playing mahjong. A lot of the times too, in the beginning, I was like, oh, do I need to like explain and preach and educate these people on like what racism is and this and that? Now I'm just like, let me just show my family who happens to be mixed race, like a mixed race family, a Blasian family. Let me show them interacting with love and kindness towards each other and like partaking in like very cultural things that we like to do. Like spades is a very black thing. Uno has become a very black thing. And so I just show us doing that. And I show us playing mahjong and eating Chinese food and going out to Chinese restaurants together as a family. And I'm like, oh, that's all I need to really show because like we're not being represented. Like black and Asians aren't being represented in Hollywood or anywhere else. So all I need to do is show that. And a lot of times when you're not preaching about it, you're just showing it, people just see themselves in you. They see like, oh, I have a grandma. She's not Chinese, but I have the same experiences that this Blasian kid is having with his grandma. It becomes universal. Whereas like if you try to hit them over the head with it, it doesn't really connect the same. And I want to serve as many people as I can, obviously prioritize like the Black and the Asian community and the Blasian community and the mixed community. But I realize throughout my journey that you don't need to sort of be so on the nose and you don't need to be angry and aggressive towards like who you think is the enemy. You just need to focus on like the pride and joy of being who you are.
No, I couldn't agree more, right? I think the beauty of things is showing, not telling, right? That's the same
Yeah.
thing with everything,
Yeah.
sales and other businesses and content and
Exactly.
so forth. It's more
Yeah.
effective when you can show. And I think
Yeah.
it's powerful. Obviously this is a Meta slash Asian Hustle Network Creators podcast. What was your
Mhm.
first viral reel on Instagram that really kicked things off for you to be like, wow, this can be a sustainable career?
Well, when the first, okay, the first thing that went viral did not make me think that I could have a career doing this. I was just like, oh, that's cool. It's viral. Like I was not like, oh, I'm gonna be a content creator and like make a living doing that. But it was the one where I was speaking Chinese and I was like, what do you expect me to look like? Like you say I don't look Chinese. What do you expect me to look like? Chicken fried rice. And that was the first viral reel that I had. And it also made me realize that like people are not used to seeing someone that looks like me speak Chinese. It also made me realize that there's a whole Asian community that does accept me because I never thought that was the case ever. I never thought that I would get validation or acceptance. And then it came when I wasn't looking for it. You know what I mean? And didn't necessarily felt that I needed it. It came when I was like, well, I'm Asian. I'm just going to show that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that when that went viral, I was just like, oh, let me make more content. I wasn't like, oh, I can make a living doing this. I was just like, this feels good to have this sense of community. And so like,
Yeah.
let me see how far I can keep sort of galvanizing this community together because this feels good. And then much later on was when I was like, oh, I guess I could make a career out of this, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like personally for you and your content, I feel like your community has been very supportive. Every time I looked at your comments and I looked at your content earlier, I feel like
Yeah.
you have a really strong community. I'm kind of curious about how this community has helped you advance your career, right? At what
Oh.
point did you like, I want to be an actor, or how did the community support you in any way possible?
So yeah, I wanted to be an actor. Well, I went to drama school. I went to
Hmm.
US. And it's funny, when I graduated from there, I was like, I'm never gonna make content. I'm a real artist. I'm a real artist. Artists don't make content on social media. That's I'm so I'm so glad I don't think that way anymore. Because creating this content, it helped me in my acting career. It helped me establish a community that is also in Hollywood, that is Asian, that is Black, that is Blasian. And I wouldn't have that community if I didn't make content on social media. I wouldn't have those connections, you know? I wouldn't because people wouldn't know who I am. I'd be relying on like a project outside of myself to get like those connections, which to me, I'm like, that's one way, but that can't be the only way for me. And it's not going to be. And the people that I look up to in the industry are the ones who created their own content, whether that's on social media or that's like a show that they wrote and starred in, or if like they made music or they did stand up and did self-generated content. I really respect comedians because like, especially comedians that do stand up and then they go the acting route and have their own show, like Ali Wong. I really love the route that she paid for herself, because she's a very serious actor now. And I don't even know if she saw that for herself because I don't think a lot of us saw that for her. But I love that you can um, create your own material, write your own stuff, be respected for that, then make a pivot because people respect you in that lane, and then do a drama and then do a rom-com, in the acting world. And so that's the path that I'm sort of carving out for myself. And honestly, like I couldn't do this without the community that has supported me so much and made me believe in myself and made me think that I like am valuable, like my story is valuable. When I first started making content, I was like, I'm just gonna do this for me because I feel like I need this. I don't think anyone's gonna care about my Black and Asian story. I feel like they would just tell me to shut up. They don't care. But that has been literally, Brian, it's been the absolute opposite of that. Like I used to think my story didn't matter and it was stupid and no one would care. But now I'm experiencing the complete opposite. So I like to tell that story because I'm always like, you're gonna say no to yourself before anyone says no to you. So eradicate that idea. Eradicate the no that you're giving yourself and then let someone tell you no because maybe they never will, you know?
Yeah. No, I think this is powerful. I think your story does matter. And I think the most ironic part of creating content is how lonely the process actually feels, right? And how much you're putting yourself out there and how much insecurity you feel, or like, oh,
Yeah, dude.
no one cares about my story. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, actually, we do. We do care a lot. And obviously, the impact you created usually affect people that you can't see, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That watch your
Yeah.
content that don't like it or don't comment. Those are
Hmm.
people are all obviously very appreciative of what you put out. So I appreciate
Yeah.
that for sure.
Yeah.
And I think for the next step for your career, and just talking about big vision stuff, right? How do you want to change Hollywood? What kind of visualization or representation do you want for an average audience when they look at you in Hollywood like 10 years down the line? Because I see nothing but success, and I'm pretty sure of that. Like you,
Thanks, man.
as much as you say, oh, you're not a planner, you're not whatever, I think you are, right? To
I
a certain
okay,
extent.
I know what you mean. Like I plan in my own kind of way. It's just not the way that sort of like is the traditional path, or at least I think is the traditional path, right? Like, oh, I need to have the binder and it's color coded and it's like I talk about this on this day and I post every day at this certain time. Like I just make sure that I am consistent in my own way. So yeah, you're right. Like I do have a plan. I just don't have the plan written down and it's very stringent and yeah, it's like by the book. I just don't operate that way. Um, but to answer your question, like how do I want to change Hollywood? I would say really I view things in terms of value. Do you know what I mean? I think what Hollywood discovered recently, like through Black Panther, how well that did and how well Crazy Rich Asians did, is that there is a market that they're not tapping into that is very valuable, and it's in the Black community, and it's in the Asian community, it's in other minority communities too, that they've never thought to even think about tapping into and creating content that sort of caters to that audience that will spend money. You know what I mean? In droves and support those projects. So to me, it's not sort of like, oh, I need to show Hollywood that we matter. It's more like, no, I just need to make the content that is valuable and that people like resonate with from and whether it's my community or not, but my community definitely supports me. I know that. To make content and material and whether that's a TV show or a movie or a podcast or any form of content and make them realize how valuable I am within my community and outside. And then now I'm already a part of Hollywood in on their radar. You know what I mean? It's not that I need to go into Hollywood to be valuable and to be seen. It's like I'm already creating my value and like Hollywood can see that and be like, it can choose and it will choose if it's valuable enough. Anybody with an audience, anybody who sort of has that value that they want, where it's all about money, it's about business. It really is at the end of the day. Is that person valuable? Can they bring value to me? Then I want them to be a part of Hollywood or this space. And for me, I'm like, okay, if you see value in me, what is the value that I get from working with you? Right? It doesn't necessarily take identity and culture away. It's just kind of separate in a certain sense. Because for me as a creator, I'm always prioritizing my community. That's not the true of every creator who's a minority, you know what I mean? But it's true for me. So if they see the value in what I'm doing and how I incorporate my community and how I make it fun and universal, then great, let's do it together. But I don't necessarily want to disrupt or change Hollywood. I just want to be myself. And if Hollywood decides that they want to work with me, then great, let's work together. But I'm not really interested in like watering down what I have to say to sort of fit what Hollywood thinks people want. I want to create what people actually want because sometimes Hollywood is very much out of they don't have their finger on the pulse. They don't actually know what people want, you know? But if I'm in the community and I'm creating content all the time and connecting with people, I know what they want. So then it's like, okay, what do I need Hollywood for? Yes, they are a platform and they can help me, but I don't feel like I ever want to do that at the expense of who I am and what my message is. You know, there are certain sacrifices to be made, but I'm not really willing to make the sacrifices that make me a different person and don't serve my community, you know,
Mm,
for
yeah.
like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I hope I'm answering the question in the way that you sort of were asking it.
Yeah. You
Um,
have.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I hope that your career takes off like a lot. Honestly, I hope that you end up in Hollywood in some shape and some form. Because I want
Yeah.
people to come back to this podcast in like 2, 3 years from now and be like, wow, this guy actually
Yeah.
stood close to his values and his morals,
Yeah.
and what
I
his
hope
vision
that
is.
that is the case.
5 years now, you're like a totally
And they're not like,
party
"Oh, I
animal on a
can't."
yacht. You're like,
Yeah,
wait a
they're like,
minute,
"Ryan
what's going
changed
on?
so much. He's just hanging out on yachts now and he doesn't care about us anymore." Yeah.
Wait a minute. That's not what you
Yeah.
said in the
Yeah.
podcast.
I have receipts, Ryan. Like this was you, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, man. But I mean, obviously, really appreciate your time during this podcast as well. And I,
Hmm.
I love your perspective on your identity, your race, your relationship with both communities. I love the
Hmm.
statement of you're 100% Black, 100% Asian, because absolutely
Hmm.
true, right? It's no such
Hmm.
thing as half-half. I
No.
love your perspective on being who you are as a person in general. So I'm kind
Hmm.
of curious. So what's next for your evolution of content on IG, and what's next for your career, and what do you want to do in the next 2 years or so?
Really, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing already on social media, but sort of investigating other sort of whether it's other platforms, other forms of media, um, you know, whether it's like more talks or or events or more long form kind of content, either on YouTube or in podcast form.
Yeah.
I am working on a book,
Oh,
working on a
congrats.
book. And so yeah, just different forms of getting the message out there and helping as many people as I can and doing it in a fun way, in a humorous way, in a universally connected humanitarian way, which connects all people who are human. And also, you know, prioritizing the mixed and the Blasians and the Black and Asian. But yeah, and still auditioning for Hollywood projects. They want to cast me in them. But yeah, that's yeah. In a nutshell, continuing to do what I'm doing and just sort of exploring a plethora of different avenues of sharing that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And I have one final question. What advice do you have for a mixed race creator trying to create content online that wants to create content towards their career and their identity? What advice do you have for them?
I would say, man, be yourself. I know that's so like oversaid and you know, cliche now, but when I heard be yourself like 5 years ago, it wasn't the same as what I understand be yourself is now. Who are you? You know, like you really gotta ask yourself that. not who do you want people to think you are, not who do you think you are. It's like, who do you know yourself to be? And then sharing the hell out of that, unencumbered, unapologetic. And it's not going to be easy when you first start. It's going to be very hard because you won't even really know if that's who you are. It takes a lot of work, it takes therapy. It takes like reading self-help books, it takes calling yourself out. It takes mending relationships with your family and friends and having hard conversations. It takes being compassionate to your family and friends and to the world and also to yourself, to get to that place. People think that it's just like, oh, I just need to create this piece of viral content. But the amount of work that I had to do on myself and who I was and my identity and like reading my history to understand who I am, because that's a whole nother level of understanding who you are. If you don't know your history because you were never taught it in the educational system that of your respective country, I'm in America, so it definitely didn't teach me who I was. You have to do that work in order to show who you are. Sometimes you have to discover who you are because it was never taught to you, you know? So that's my advice, that it's not sort of just the form. Because I went to drama school, I learned how to act, but that didn't necessarily teach me who I was. I had to figure that out on my own and through my community, you know? That's my advice.
No, I love that. So deep. This conversation in general was very deep today. So I appreciate that. I just feel like you're just a
Thanks.
very, very deep person in general. So Ryan, obviously, thank you so much for being on the podcast. How can our listeners find out more
Mm.
about you and reach out to you online?
Before I share my handles, I want to say thank you, Brian. You're awesome. Thank you for welcoming me into the Asian Hustle Network fold, and also, thank you, Meta Prosper, for really uplifting us in our community, like with the power that they have. That's awesome. I love them. I love you. And to the listeners, if you want to see more of me, I am Ryan Alex H on all the platforms. That's RyanAlexH, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. I was gonna say OnlyFans, but that's a joke. I'm not on.
Not yet,
But
right?
if I did have OnlyFans, it would be Ryan Alex. Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We'll leave all that in the show notes. But thank you,
yeah.
Ryan, for your insightful conversation and knowledge. I appreciate everything, and I hope that you enjoy your day in DC.
You as well, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.